There are a couple of things that I have often mentioned, but today's dialogue gives me an opportunity to reiterate them. One is that, particularly in the mental health sphere, when an individual decides to inhabit this realm chiefly compelled by their own lived experience, it tends to be very impactful because there is a understanding and an insight that tends to be more nuanced than theoretical, intellectual, scholastic study. I think it's also fair to say that the reasons and motivations are more quote unquote correct, and one's reason for doing that kind of work then becomes unimpeachable, really. So that applies very much to our guest today. And the second thing that I want to share, which is purely selfish, is that in my attempts to identify an effective expressive arts practitioner in my own city that I love dearly, which is Jaipur, my attempts have not, let's say, met with much success on prior occasions, and therefore also I'm very, very happy that this individual is very much in the Pink City doing the work that she is doing. Pardon me. We are calling today's session of talk therapy the art of expression and the science of interpretation. And joining us is counseling psychologist, and she's very careful to say an expressive arts practitioner, Sagarika. And I sort of met her quite by chance. I'm going to say quite plainly that I was profoundly impacted by my conversation with her offline when I gained a little bit of an insight and understanding in terms of why she does what she does. And here we are. All of this happened very quickly, very organically, and therefore I'm really, really grateful and thankful that she's made the time to be here. Welcome, Sagarika.
Thank you so much, Karthik, and wow, such a lovely introduction. I'm really humbled, and I think before we start, I would really like to be grateful to you for extending this opportunity for me to speak about expressive arts, and I really cherish the conversation that we had in the very beginning. And I think that builds the very ground for our conversation, that how vulnerability leads to strong connections. So, yeah, so we'll of course deep dive into it. But as you said, that I've been working in expressive arts not for a long while, I would say it's just been 2 years now. And the journey is very personal. It started when I was going through a very rough patch in life. There is pros and cons to being a very sensitive human being. So you experience emotions, which is beautiful, but at certain occasions, you don't know what to do with that. Because I think we are educated to function in the world, but not educated enough to deal with the fundamentals of life. So when I was going through that rough patch, I happened to meet my mentor, Miss Manju Jain, who's one of the IATA's wellness guide and committee member as well. So she was running a cohort that I kind of signed up for. And that's how my expressive arts journey started. It was very transformative for me because I got ways to express myself. And it's not that words are not enough, but sometimes you need something beyond words to support you. So I was fortunate enough to have friends and family who could hear me out and just be there without judgment. But yet, every individual brings their own perspective to a communication. And when you are overwhelmed or you're going through a rough patch, you want the world to see your perspective and validate it. And I think hadn't it been to the journey I've gone through of healing and transformation, I wouldn't have ever realized that, you know, it's you who, whose emotions and how you see world matters the most, and not how people see you. So just to give more context to it, for example, post expressive arts, I happened to understand when I could overcome that rough patch, understand, deal with my emotions better, regulate myself better. I realized that every individual whom you're having a conversation with brings their own perspective to table, and that's coming from their lived experience, right? So when you're having that conversation, we kind of subside the factor that they are not trying to explain you something, but they are trying to understand things from their own lens, which is not wrong. But you are in the rush of being understood in the way that you have experienced things. So I think it was a very beautiful journey in those regards. And now when I look back, I think I've evolved as a human being a lot. And this could happen because of expressive arts. How that in expressive arts, you just not indulge yourself in arts. There is self regulation through grounding exercises. There is sharing circle where you happen to listen to people's journey. And it is so beautiful that we all start in a session with the same prompt, but we end up experiencing things so differently. And yet, that sharing circle is a welcoming space for you to not have just one answer, but just have your own interpretation and a space for you to express yourself beautifully. And those little details to the program made me realize that how sharing or expressing is sometimes about just being, not commenting, not guiding, and that silence itself is very supportive. And even one prompt can act out differently for individuals, one guidance can pan out differently. And those little things, when you just take back those learnings and put them together, you realize that it is beyond just expressing yourself. You learn so much in that. So that's how I started and evolved as an individual. And this made me more committed to the work because, as I shared, that when I completed my master's, because of the lack of applied based learning, I didn't wish to get into the field. And I kind of delayed it for too long, was in corporate world experiencing that. But when expressive arts happened, I realized that this is something that I want to take as a core technique and use with my clients because it gives you so much liberty. There is no interpretation at the end of the facilitator or the therapist. It is like, for example, I'll explain it in a better way by just giving us a very simple example, which is let's say if you draw a circle, I'll not even call it a circle. I'll ask you, what shape is this? Okay, what you've drawn. It could be hard for you. And that kind of freedom expressive arts give. No interpretation of color. Maybe, in books you would read that blue is a gloomy color, but for somebody, blue could signify something else.
Most certainly.
Yeah, so I think though that makes me love the technique more because of the freedom it gives to the person who's expressing. And they don't have to worry about being particular about the colors or shapes or how the art is looking, because then when a dialogue happens, they can explain it. They can share what they've put on a paper and what that means to them. And I think in India, there is still not much understanding about it. When I do my wellness sessions, people come thinking that, okay, we'll be learning art. और बहुत बार लोगों का एक बहुत बेसिक क्वेश्चन होता है कि अच्छा हमारा आर्टिस्ट होना ज़रूरी है
Hmm.
क्या हमने मतलब पहले हमें इस मीडियम के साथ एक्सपीरियंस होना चाहिए and when I tell them that you don't need any technique, you just come with an open heart and experience it. And the words don't make sense, to be very honest, to them in the very beginning. It is towards the end when we end with sharing circle. People just express how impactful the journey was, even one
Hmm.
session.
Hmm.
So yeah. Um,
Wonderful. So, I'm going to thank you for sharing that. And it was, you shared very articulately. I do have a couple of questions that'll probably take us a few steps back, actually.
no,
Um, you were in the corporate sector. Of course, we are not here to needlessly criticize or bash any one sector or anything such as that. But with the wisdom of time, space, distance, and in hindsight, do you feel that your time in the corporate world gave you any insights or learnings that have been quite useful in your expressive arts practice?
Um, yes, I think it made me more empathetic and understanding towards people. Not to throw shade on a certain sector, but the fact is that corporate world is functioning in a way where well-being is compromised.
Hmm.
And I could sense that in my experience because, I was working from home. So you kind of preserve your energy because you're around your people, right? When I used to visit office in general, or maybe I used to go office here in Jaipur, I realized that people are not just enjoying what they're doing. And I think, of course, it comes with a certain privilege that, you can pursue what you want, your dreams. So I get it. But I think I wish there was more awareness and more importance given to the mental health and well being of an individual. It saddens me because you can say that you're sick. I have fever, I don't want to show up. But you don't have the liberty to say that I am not emotionally doing well. I'm exhausted because you then get to hear that, you're too sensitive for the world to function. And people just don't realize that just like aggression is an emotion, so is crying, right? You are letting out your frustration by being angry. Somebody is letting out their frustration by shedding tears.
Sure.
So that that difference is neglected because in corporate world, anger is seen as passion, as dedication, and emotions are seen as weakness. You have to be strong-headed, dedicated. Maybe I am, but maybe I'm sensitive. Why can't two things just work together? So that kind of bothered me a lot in both my journeys. And also, I when I observed that how well-being is kind of worked upon, that also I felt was very monitored. you know Not like a free flowing thing. Okay, this is for the employees and let them explore it, they have their time. But I think there was a lot of micromanagement around it as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So those things bothered me a lot, but made me sensitive because now when I talk to a corporate person or an individual who's working and doesn't like it, it helps me in both ways.
Hmm.
A, providing them a more better environment and understanding them better where they're coming from. And at the same time, somebody who's coming with a, career counseling, you know, kind of thing. So in that space, I understand when a child is coming or when an adult is coming for transition, I make them understand that one thing, which we kind of neglect all our lives, is that your career is something which is going to impact all parameters of your life. How exhausted you are by the end of the day, how much you're earning, your relationship, your well-being, in all regards it's going to impact. Because we generally end up believing that, I'll work, I'll have money, and I'll come back. But we really forget that that exhaustion after work, how consuming my work is gonna impact my personal life. And so when somebody is looking for a transition, or maybe a young child is looking for guidance, I just tell them that you always have the liberty to transition into something else.
Hmm.
Don't think that this is something which is etched in a stone and you have to just swear by it. And it's not like you failed in life.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just that you grew as an individual and so did your interest or your expectations. So these are the learnings that came from the corporate world, because if I wouldn't have lived that experience, I believe that my perspective would have been a little narrowed and limited to my comfortable life.
Those are absolutely invaluable lessons that you've learned, actually, because we do inhabit a society where a lot of people seem to feel comfortable shoehorning an individual into a box and labeling it. And whenever there is transition, or let's say in business terms, if an individual decides to pivot in terms of their life career path, particularly, it is often criticized and seen as confusion, seen as, oh my God, this person can't make up their mind, and all of that. And it's rarely, seldom seen as any kind of evolution, or, a newer discovery. So that's really, really important. Um, I want to ask you a very, very basic question because, like you very correctly said, there is a significant percentage of people who would come into a program such as yours thinking, अरे ये तो art class है, drawing या तो सीखेंगे या drawing आना चाहिए. So
Hmm.
coming from that reality and standpoint, uh, if I was to ask you again in simple layman's terms to share with the audience what typically they can expect in a program or workshop of yours of expressive arts.
I think one, uh, I would say it's like a little retreat for few hours, and other is it's just your moment to pause and reflect. And when you come for an expressive art workshop, come with an open heart and not expect how the art would look like, or will there be any learning, because maybe you've had your reflection within and you don't want to share it with people. So, and sometimes even we are so overwhelmed that we are not able to process our emotions at the very moment.
Hmm.
But sometimes somebody else shares something
Hmm.
that makes you feel heard. Because, for example, you listen to a song and you said, oh my God, they've just expressed my feelings.
Yep, yep,
So,
absolutely.
so sometimes listening to someone share their experience and their courage, or maybe their vulnerabilities, it makes you feel seen and heard and gives you the courage to put yourself out there.
It can be so many things, right? It can be courage, it can be clarity, it can be perspective, it can
Yeah,
be a certain objectivity that one tends to lose when one is in a certain rut or situation. It can be so
exactly.
many things.
Yeah. And I think if somebody is actually willing to come for an expressive art workshops, I would say that it's just as simple as taking out time for yourself and trying something which is more meaningful and not just something aesthetic or just to enjoy things, because generally we feel that's a better area to invest, because I've had a tough day. I don't want to touch my emotions. That feels really overwhelming to people. Oh
Hmm,
my
hmm,
God,
hmm,
I'll
hmm.
have to get touching with, I'll rather go to therapy, or maybe, I'll sort it out my own. But people don't realize that the sense of community, that, you have more people around you, more people sharing, doing the same thing. You feel supported and empowered in a way which is a feeling that cannot be put in words. And I think that sense of community and connection also comes through these workshops, which is really enriched by people who have been in those spaces. So yeah,
Well, thank you for clarifying that because it's important for people to understand
yeah,
what they're sort of in for. Let's shift tracks a little bit. We You did mention very correctly um, uh, an extremely controversial term called vulnerability.
yeah,
Oftentimes we hear, whether it's a certain generation, whether it's brought about by a certain situation, that, men don't cry and women don't complain. And there are all of these sort of set stereotypes and cultural conditioning, usko keh lo ya jo bhi naam dena
Mhm.
hai, polite or not too polite. Um, I would love to know your uh, observations and what you've come to realize about vulnerability, because to me, it's terribly ironic that what is labeled weakness actually requires a hell of a lot of courage.
Couldn't agree more with you. Um, I think why people are scared of, I think we'll get to that later, but starting with vulnerability, when I say that, it's okay to be vulnerable, people just think that they have to put out their life on paper just the very moment. It's like exposing your dark
Mm,
side and your good
mm,
side both at the same time. But I think there's more to vulnerability that we, lack to understand. There is a very beautiful saying by Brené Brown that vulnerability is something that I look in you, and I'm scared to show when it comes to me, right? And you, in its courage, and in me, it's weakness. So I think this entire quote by her just says the exact feeling that people have, that, if I go and in public say that I've been through this and this is how I felt and I was at my lowest, I made these mistakes, people would be like, oh my God, she's so brave, right? And when I'll tell them that it's okay, you can also share, they would be like, no, I can't. And I think सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि बचपन से हमें सिखाया जाता है कि हर चीज बाहर जाके नहीं बोलनी होती, लोग फायदा उठाएंगे।
mm,
मुझे
mm,
ऐसा लगता है कि लोग फायदा पता नहीं उठाते हैं, नहीं उठाते हैं, बट वो इंसान की खुद की विजडम होती है। सो जस्ट लाइक टू लव, टू ट्रस्ट, इट टेक्स करेज। टू बी vulnerable also, it takes a lot of courage. And vulnerability is important to make connections that are meaningful, because otherwise what we are building is just surface level connections, right? So what I've understood with vulnerability is like somebody who's trying to explore, like maybe who's a closed individual but wanna share their feelings. You can maybe start by addressing that it's okay to feel a certain way, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to acknowledge them. Because the moment you let go of that idea that we've been taught all our lives, that, one has to be perfect. Nobody is. You will make mistakes, and that's how you learn. Otherwise, how will you learn in life? Right? Because as simple as riding a bicycle, right? When you start with those supporting wheels, but then you have to let go those. And when you let go those, you will fall. That's how you learn to balance. But in life, we are too scared to take those risks. And then people think that they'll have to share everything. So maybe you can start by acknowledging that, okay, I am wrong here. I am right here. Maybe I'm too emotional and it's okay, right? I am human. And then maybe slowly just finding your people you're more comfortable sharing with. Maybe, acknowledging that you need support, and then probably reaching a point wherein you can start asking for help also. But it's like taking little steps. You don't have to put yourself out there immediately, right? It's a journey. And I think even I learned it very difficult way, because I am the eldest sibling, right? And my sister is like 7 years younger to me.
So you
So
were expected to be this, model of strength and courage, and how
yeah.
it's perceived.
And more than that, when there is that age gap and you are alone for the longest, you try to navigate your own emotions and feelings by
Sure.
yourself, because you don't have the support. With parents, they're busy with their things, and you don't know as it. And because in India, we're not even taught about emotions, and those areas are not even touched upon as a child. So you don't know how to share. It is when you have siblings or friends, you begin to understand. And I remember my sister still jokes about it, that it's so difficult for you to ask for help. And I thought that's strength for all these years when she didn't call it out. But then I realized it's not strength. I am just struggling within and not ready to accept it.
Yeah.
And I realized when I started asking for help and saying out loud that I can't, it was such a relief, because I could really cry. And I'm not ashamed of crying in front of my younger sister, because what is wrong with that? Anybody can be a support system. Age has nothing to do with, wisdom. That's what I have learned my in my life. And something that I've really observed, and I really feel bad, not even angry, is that we all are victims to patriarchy, right? So when I meet my guy friends, I meet my brothers and all, I sense that they really want to be sensitive, but they don't know how to be. And when you just give them that one space, they'll end up telling you that I've never shared so much with somebody. Maybe because they were just looking for that comfort and someone to tell them it's okay, you can cry. You know, it's okay, you can tell that you don't want to go to work today. You don't want to just do this job. They don't have that space. And when you see somebody very closely going through that, you realize how saddening is that for some individual to just struggle with those things within, because you have to be some macho or alpha guy. We're putting these terms on Instagram and complicating it more. So I think what I believe is that every individual, irrespective of age, gender, needs to learn to regulate their emotions, and to learn to ask for help, name their feelings at least. And it takes off all the burden that you're going through, and that opens so many doors for you to think more clearly. So those are the things that I have realized when I started doing these workshops or observing people around, that vulnerability, I wish, was the most easy thing that came to human beings. And we were meant to form connections. We were meant to form, meaningful bonds with people. And we are kind of restricting it by numbing ourselves to all the emotions that we label negative. But I believe no emotion is positive or negative, it's just an emotion.
Absolutely. That's very well said. And, to your point, if you give me a couple of minutes, to your point specifically that you made earlier, that, people sometimes call out this entire thing of sharing one's weaknesses, etc. And that, it can be taken advantage of. I have found in my own experience that while that might happen, chances are that a vast majority of people will not do that and will do the opposite. Now, when I was diagnosed with my thyroid cancer in 2019, I started putting out these videos quite regularly on social media, and I was putting them out throughout my treatment journey. And literally without exception, friends, family, acquaintances said, "You've gone mad, don't do this. Nazar lag jayegi and ye ho jayega, and people will wish ill upon you, etc., etc." Um, I'm not aware of any such thing happening. What I am aware of, which completely positively overwhelmed me and became such a huge source of strength and courage to fight the illness, was this floodgate that opened of random people writing in, calling, reaching out, saying, you know it'll be fine, and you're being so brave, and your what you are putting out gives us so much hope. There's so much mystery and secrecy around an illness like this, and you're sort of acquainting us with the process, and this it can be transitional, it doesn't have to meet the worst end, and so many things, all positive. So I think that when you put out something and you put out your vulnerability into the universe and into the cosmos and into other people's hands, you are held.
Absolutely. And I think you did the most right thing by, putting yourself out and not hesitating even after people stopping you, because that happens. I mean, maybe it's coming from a place of concern or, uh,
Sure, it's yeah. I mean, that is the motives
yeah,
are absolutely rooted in concern and love and care. But then,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I think even that takes a lot of courage to, push the boundaries and do something which seems, I would say, absurd to people, that why do you have to put your life out there? Why do you have to? But as you said, it opens so many gates and it allows people who've been going through it feel more supported and heard, just like it happened in your journey. And I think we've kind of just letting that be in a way that, so when I started working with one of the NGOs. It's based in US, and we started working on social emotional learning and setting up that in schools. So when we were training teachers, and it was like my initial phase, I'll uh, I'll just tell you one thing, one experience that just stood by me was a teacher shared that how Cell has helped her. And again, this whole Cell model is based on expressive arts. And she said that a child, I'm forgetting the age, but was 4 or 5 in like in fourth or fifth standard, maybe younger than that, lost his father. And he was crying. And the teacher said that if I wasn't trained in Cell, I would have asked the child to
To
stop
shut
crying.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. कि रोने की जरूरत नहीं है, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. That's what we, tell children. She said that I just let him be. He was crying till the moment he wanted to just calm down. And then I asked her, how is he feeling? Right. And the child said that, he's okay. And while leaving the place, he just turned back and told his teacher that, I'll be good, I'll recover, and you know what? I'll do better in exams. Don't worry about me.
That's amazing.
And that child just, and we just don't know how to co regulate someone just by letting them be.
Yeah.
And I believed it's such a beautiful thing that apart from maths, English, and science, what we've been taught all our lives, I wish this is taught in every school. So a child knows how to be vulnerable. It's okay. And when you are vulnerable, it builds a certain compassion in you that if somebody is being vulnerable, you are not taken aback. कि इसका क्या करना है? You know, uh, I remember there was this podcast, this stand up by Zakir, wherein he just said that, when men generally cry or try to explain things to their friends because they're not used to that sort of setup, they'll just shut them up there by asking just some random question. Let's grab a drink. Challa, koi aur ladki dhoond lete hain. So just they digress from the
Yeah,
topic.
yeah, yeah.
And I think because it is surely because we don't know how to hold space.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And again, it's a whole cycle. So when you aren't vulnerable, you don't know how to deal with vulnerability. So I think it's like, I would say a vicious circle that we're stuck in.
But I do believe that vicious cycle and that chicken and egg situation is starting to develop cracks and autocorrect, albeit slowly, because I do find that there is a clear uh, evolution in understanding and priority that a younger generation is placing upon their self awareness and state of mind and work life balance and all of those things that weren't even part of the lexicon in earlier cases.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why Gen Z is little beyond understanding for people because they're like out there with their emotions and everything. So
Yeah.
people feel that they're just too much. Maybe because they're just too expressive and our generation doesn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it'll be a fitting way of tying up this entire little conversation we've had. And this has been something that, in any case, I've been wanting to ask you to bring it back to expressive arts.
Yeah.
Sagarika, what is it? I understand and take the point that it's not for a variety of reasons
Hmm.
always possible for an individual to articulate what they are feeling and express it via language.
Yeah.
And then that's in those situations, especially expressive arts can be effective. What what quality is it about art you think that enables that to happen?
I think if I talk specifically about expressive arts and before that, I think art has been part of our culture ever since, as a form of expression. It is just that with time it kind of faded away. But even in spiritual realms, if you see, the community space had those uh, elements of arts,
Mm,
music,
mm,
chanting, art forms to
Hmm.
express, what a deity would look like. And
Right.
then dance, like for that matter, if you talk about Tandav, it's a form of expression, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it has culturally existed, but it kind of faded away with technology. But yeah, the trends are coming back. People are again getting in touch with the art and
Yeah.
culture. And I think that's why expressive art gives that form, because it's not just one art modality.
Hmm.
It is interdisciplinary. So you have music, you have art, you have writing, you have movement, you have so much to explore
Hmm.
within those 90 minutes. So let's say if A doesn't work out for me, B might. And at the same time, it is kind of focusing on different aspects. So your kinesthetics, your tactile. So just for layman to understand that through movement,
Hmm.
through senses, your
Hmm.
different body elements are getting more aware,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So for example, when we do five senses meditation or maybe a simple grounding exercise, the idea is to bring your attention to the very moment, because we all are so much in our minds. There's so much to deal with, so much to plan and look forward to, that we are just stuck here. So, grounding allows you to bring you out of that. Movement again is a way to let your physical stressors go away, to express. So it could be maybe as simple as stretching, or it could be as simple as moving to a very dramatic music. So it starts from slow rhythm, but then it moves to something very dramatic, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it gives you an expression to move your body and just express. Because even if
Hmm.
I ask you right now that, just move your body in a way that it feels like to move. So you will. Maybe you'll
Hmm.
move your neck, your
Hmm.
shoulders.
Hmm.
So we are holding that stress in our body. And then art, when I just simply give you a prompt to, just draw how you're feeling,
Hmm.
right? You don't have to explain. You
Hmm.
use colors, and maybe you don't have an explanation to what you've drawn at that very moment, but it has surfaced what has been held inside for very long. And that's how the flow, in a way or another, touches upon different aspects. So, from sensory to emotional to cognitive, that, you're able to navigate those areas slowly. And then a sharing circle is a space wherein, either you express or you hear. Again, it allows you to feel more supportive. So different aspects in a one session are kind of, uh, is designed in a way that those aspects are integrated and and the individuals or the participants are provided a more holistic experience of what they are experiencing. And the beauty of expressive arts is that you have choice. That, let's say you don't want to do art, you started with grounding, you maybe want to stay with your breath and just see others draw.
Sure. Sure.
And that's again a form of regulation that people don't realize. That, sometimes just pausing, you're making a conscious choice. You
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
what your body wants and you're standing by it. So, those little things when you practice in the session is something that's a takeaway for you, which you want to go, you want to go back to when in your life you feel stuck. So I remember in one of the sessions, and also another thing, when it's a theme based expressive art sessions. So, for example, I might tell you that, you need to let go of things, Karthik, which are not helping you, which are not supporting you. It sounds very bookish, very theoretical. You'll be like, yeah, I know that. Tell me
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
new,
Yeah.
right? Now, in a session, if I ask you to put all your stressors on a piece of paper or a balloon, right? And we simply start by blowing a balloon, putting stress into it, then just putting leftover emotions through abstract drawing or words. And then I ask you to hold that for 10 minutes. You won't believe, there was a session when a lady came to me and she was like, I want to let go of the balloon. I know why she was saying that. I like, just stay with it for 2 minutes. And then people, when I asked them to just let go of the balloon now, some people could burst it, some people could throw it away, and some were still holding it, right? There was no pressure. You could do whatever you wanted to do. In sharing circle, the reflections were so beautiful that through that one simple exercise, people could reflect that this is my practice of holding on to my past and not letting it go. I need to work on it. So the whole group together, just there was a pause, and we I offered her, would you like to try that now? Would you like to burst or throw away? And it took so much courage for her to just simply do that. But she felt supported because everybody was holding that silence for her. And even she could not do that, nobody would have judged her because she just named her vulnerability, her, where she's stuck in life. And others could realize that, okay, I need to let go of these things. Some people said that I was holding on to this, but I didn't have a way to express it. So that's what an expressive art journey does to you. Maybe making you understand things that need your time and attention, maybe something, maybe, a plan of action that what needs to be done next
Hmm.
for that. So
You've
that,
you've you've
yeah.
explained that really, really beautifully and effectively. I have a perspective which is just one small element of the various reasons and factors that make art as a broad tool being employed so effective. And tell me if this resonates with you at a very basic and fundamental level. um, when we are told to write something or to express in words, I think human instinct is to uh, very unconsciously even start self censoring. We think about it too much. Whereas when we are given an arts based prompt, I think the response is a lot more unfiltered, immediate, and unadulterated.
Yeah, that's very true. But I think there's something which I've observed is that with people, it is a lot to do with the personality.
Sure.
So let's say if somebody who is a perfectionist, who's been evaluating everything in their life, they would come with the tendency to evaluate even their artwork.
Sure.
And I think what helps them is I simply ask them to blindfold themselves or use their left hand. So they can just give them a bargain that, okay, I was blindfolded or I was using my non dominant hand. So I think these little tweaks in the session allows a participant to ease out and
Yeah.
not focus on their performance, because I think it is something which is culturally instilled in Indians specifically. In Asians, I would say that we are so much worried about just performing in the right way. Even in such wellness spaces कि मैं जो बात कहूँ या मेरा जो रिफ्लेक्शन हो वो सब कुछ हो जाना चाहिए, ऐसे नहीं हो सकता.
Yeah, I think there's a performance pressure that we impose on ourselves
Yeah,
as a part of a broader sort of, I know I'm generalizing, but South Asian community. Well,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, way longer than anticipated. But I'm very, very happy. I meant when I said that I'm very happy you're in Jaipur, of all places. Again, this is not meant to be a disparaging comment in any way, but the fact of the matter is that it is our so-called smaller tier 2 cities
Yeah.
and communities in these kinds of places that can really benefit from greater understanding and exposure to the kinds of interventions that you mentor and facilitate. So thank you for the wonderful work that you do. I'm very glad that the corporate world's loss is our gain. And thank you once again for this conversation. Take care, and I'm, looking forward to perhaps doing some on-ground work together between yourself and Driveway Devi.
That would be a privilege. And thank you so much for having me. I just love having that candid conversation with you. And I think I really cherish. I think when we spoke the last time, even it just connected so easily. So, yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing, bringing so many people out there, different modalities, different experiences. I think this is what we really need, candid conversations and more exposure to mental health in different ways from different lenses.
Wonderful. Take care and have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.